All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're doing something, well, kind of different. We're actually giving the most popular form of government on Earth a literal performance review. We are putting democracy to the test. And not just based on lofty feel-good ideals, but looking at the actual, measurable outcomes.
Because, let's be real, as citizens, we look at the messy, super noisy reality of our governments every single day. We read the headlines and inevitably ask ourselves, wait, does this actually work? We see the delays, the constant arguing, and honestly, it's incredibly easy to start second-guessing the whole system.
And it leaves us in this constant daily dilemma. On paper, right, democracy sounds absolutely amazing. It's supposed to promote equality among citizens, enhance our dignity as individuals, and give us a fair, peaceful way to resolve conflicts. But then, there's democracy in practice. And the day-to-day reality, well, often feels painfully slow, deeply unequal, and just plain frustrating.
So here's the crucial thing. We need to completely reframe our expectations. We get so fascinated with democracy that we start believing it's just going to automatically fix all our socioeconomic problems. But democracy is not a magic wand. It's really just a form of government that creates the conditions for achieving something. The rest of the heavy lifting? That's actually up to us, the citizens, to use those conditions to get things done.
So, how are we grading it today? We are going to evaluate its performance across 4 main metrics: political accountability and legitimacy, the economic scorecard, managing social diversity, and finally, dignity, freedom, and citizens.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, political accountability and legitimacy. When we talk about political outcomes, the very first question is usually about efficiency. And sure, dictatorships, they can be incredibly fast. They literally don't have to worry about annoying things like public opinion or open debate. But that infamous democratic slowness we all complain about, that is actually a feature, not a bug. Because democracy forces negotiation and follows strict procedures, the decisions that come out at the end are way more transparent and ultimately much more acceptable to the people. And you know what? People really, really value that legitimacy. Just look at South Asia. We're talking massive majorities. 71% in Sri Lanka, 70% in India, 69% in Bangladesh, who vastly prefer democratic rule over a dictatorship. Even with all its glaring flaws, people deeply wish to be ruled by representatives they actually elect themselves. It creates a legitimate government, and that is a massive outcome you just can't ignore. So if we're measuring political quality, we're looking for 3 big things: regular, free and fair elections, open public debate on major policies, and citizens' right to information. Now, let's be totally honest in this audit. The actual track record here, it's pretty mixed. Democracies definitely fall short on opening up every single decision to public debate. They notoriously struggle with transparency, and yeah, routine tales of corruption are all too common. But compare that to literally any non-democratic regime, they are still undeniably better at establishing the baseline conditions for debate and actually holding those regular elections. So, that's the political side. Moving right along to Section 2, the economic scorecard. Now, this is where the historical data gets really fascinating, and maybe a little uncomfortable. If you look at the numbers between 1950 and 2000, dictatorial regimes actually pulled off a slightly higher overall economic growth rate. We're talking 4.42% compared to 3.95% in democratic regimes. So for a second, that inability of democracy to guarantee higher economic development, it might seem deeply troubling. But hold on, you can't just toss out democracy based purely on raw overall economic development. Because when you zoom in and only look at less developed countries, that slight edge practically vanishes. In poor countries, the growth rate under dictatorships is 4.34%, and under democracies, it's 4.28%. I mean, the difference is basically negligible. Economic development depends on so many complex things: population size, global situations, economic priorities, that we simply can't say democracy guarantees growth, but it certainly doesn't inherently lag behind either.
But if we're looking for a true failing on this economic scorecard, it's absolutely inequality. Democracies promise political equality, right? One person, one vote. But they frequently failed to translate that into economic equality. The numbers out of South Africa, for instance, are just staggering. The top 20% of the population takes nearly 65% of the national income, leaving less than 3% for the bottom 20%. That is a literal chasm of wealth distribution.
And it presents a massive paradox for us. In a lot of nations, the poor make up a huge proportion of the voter base. Take Bangladesh, where more than half the population lives in poverty. Yet, democratically elected governments frequently struggle or sometimes just appear completely unwilling to address severe poverty.
the system often just leaves the very bottom of society scrambling to meet basic life needs like food, clothing, and healthcare. All right, on to metric number 3, managing social diversity.
Look, no society can fully resolve every single conflict between different groups. That's just human nature. But for democracy to accommodate deep social, ethnic, or linguistic diversity without just violently fracturing apart, it basically has to follow 2 non-negotiable rules. Condition 1, majority rule does not mean the majority dictates everything. The majority has to continuously work with the minority to represent the general view. And condition 2, your status as the majority cannot be permanently locked in based on religion, race, or birth. Basically, every single citizen needs to have a fighting chance of being in the majority at some point in time.
So the real triumph here isn't the total elimination of conflict, because frankly, that's an impossible goal for any society. The real triumph is that democracy creates a safe, peaceful procedure to continuously negotiate those exact tensions. It develops a framework for healthy competition, dramatically reducing the odds of tensions boiling over into explosive or violent conflict. And that ability to handle our deepest social divisions, that is a massive, massive plus point for democratic regimes.
Which brings us to our final section, dignity, freedom, and citizens. When we zoom out and evaluate the whole picture, democracy stands head and shoulders above any other system in promoting the dignity and freedom of the individual. Historically speaking, most societies were built entirely on subordination and domination. But the democratic framework, it finally provides actual legal and moral backing for disadvantaged groups. Whether you're looking at the long struggles by women for equal treatment or disadvantaged castes fighting for equal status, the principle of equality finally has a solid foundation to stand on.
But here's the catch, and it's a fascinating one. Because democracy elevates individual dignity so much, its final exam is never, ever actually over. Passing one test simply produces another set of expectations and complaints. As people get a few benefits, they naturally turn around and ask for more. They want to make the system even better, which means citizens are constantly, endlessly going to demand more from the people holding power.
So here is the absolute ultimate takeaway from all of this. All your frustration, your loud complaints, your endless demands for a better system, that is actually the ultimate proof that the democratic project is working exactly as intended. A public expression of dissatisfaction transforms you from being a mere subject into an empowered, active citizen.
Think about it. When people complain, it means they truly believe they actually have the power to change things. They aren't just shouting into a void. And the data backs this up. Huge majorities across South Asia, like 75% in Nepal, 67% in India, and 66% in Bangladesh, firmly believe that their vote makes a real, tangible difference to how the government is run and to their own lives.
So now that we've officially completed our audit, you have to ask yourself one final question. We've seen that democracy absolutely struggles with economic inequality and speed, but it totally excels at legitimacy, peaceful negotiation, and human dignity. So, if your democracy is a test, what grade are you giving it today? And maybe even more importantly, as an empowered citizen, what exactly are you going to complain about today to make it better?